G'day ladies and gentlemen, Scotty D here from the Australis Tabletop Wargaming Network, and welcome into our next installment in our series, How to Play Warhammer 40,000 10th Edition. Alrighty everyone, so welcome in once again to our How to Play Warhammer 40,000 10th Edition series here on the ATW, when with myself, where we're going to continue to look at the different ways you can play the game, how to actually play the game itself, and how to go about constructing army lists. And for this video, for the series, we're going to be looking at the rules around transports and how they work in 10th edition of the game, as they are something that you may see people fielding in their army lists. So before we jump in, I want to thank everyone who has been supporting us here on the YouTube side of things. Really appreciate all the subs, the comments, the likes on all the content we've been putting out, particularly all of the Adelaide Uprising games. And if you haven't checked those games out, make sure you go and have a look at them. Some really great top-level competitive 40k that you can check out with those games as well. With that out of the way, let's jump into talking a bit about transports. Now, transports are generally vehicle keyword units that have got the transport keyword in addition to that vehicle keyword, and they're generally defined as the dedicated transport unit, allowing you to take up to 6 of one type of dedicated transport in your army list. However, not all transports are vehicles, or are they even classed as dedicated transport. So bear that in mind when you are selecting transports for your army list. Some might be, say, for example, a Stormlord, which is a Baneblade variant. It does have a transport capacity, but it doesn't actually count as a dedicated transport. So that's something to bear in mind as one such example. I know there's a few others floating around in the game as well. Now, there are a few different rules for transports that we're going to be looking at in the video today. And the first one we're going to start off with is looking at transport capacity. Now, all transports will have a transport capacity that is listed on their data sheet. This will have the maximum number of friendly models that are able to be embarked within the transport at any given time during your games of Warhammer 40,000. Now, units are allowed to start the battle embarked within a transport instead of being set up on the battlefield normally. And where you actually declare this is what units are embarked in which transports is during the declared battle formation step of setting up a game. So, you know, you can choose to put them in there at the start of the game if you wish to do so. It is important to note that if you don't, however, they do count as being destroyed if you do not have anything in them at the start of the game. The next rule we're going to be looking at is the firing deck rule for transports. Now, some transports will have the firing deck ability, and it will be denoted as firing deck X, where the X is going to be a number of some count. Now, not all vehicles that are transports will have the firing deck ability, so that is something to bear in mind as well. Now, when you do select a transport model to make shooting attacks during the shooting phase, you're actually able to select a number of models equal to the X value that are embarked within the transport and select one of their ranged weapons that they are equipped with. Now, until the transport has resolved all of its attacks, it actually counts as being equipped with all the weapons that you select in this way. So we're going to look at a few examples later on in the video that will explain a little bit about how all these different rules work for transports as well. And this is going to be one of them we're going to be showing you as well to see how it works in practice. The next two rules that we're going to be looking at are crucial for transports, and this is the rules around embarking and disembarking for units getting in or getting out of transports. Now, when a unit is wanting to embark within a transport, if it makes a normal, advance, or fallback move that ends with every model within that unit within 3 inches of the transport, they are able to embark upon it. However, a unit cannot embark in a transport if it already disembarked from a different transport earlier that phase. Also, you cannot embark in the same transport you just disembarked. It makes it pointless. So why'd you get them out anyway, right? So just a little caveat there in the rules just to help clear things up. Now, once the unit is embarked within the transport, you then remove all the models from that unit from the battlefield unless otherwise stated. That unit can not do anything or be affected in any way whilst they are embarked within a transport. This does include things like Thousand Suns Cabal points. You don't gain Cabal points for units that are within transports at the start of the game or start of any battle round. So that is something else to bear in mind, as well as, you can't use unit abilities like the lieutenant's lethal hits as well. Doesn't affect the unit if you're using the firing deck ability, because the unit's not firing, the vehicle's firing. So that's just something to bear in mind as well. Now, when you want to disembark a unit from a transport during the movement phase, they must have started within the transport at the beginning of the phase. So it means that you can't jump in one side of a transport, jump out the other to gain some extra movement, basically. So you have to be able to stay within that transport at the start of the phase. Now, when a unit is disembarking from a transport, you need to set every model in the unit up on the battlefield so that it is wholly within 3 inches of the transport model and not within engagement range of any enemy units. If any model within the unit cannot disembark, then unfortunately the entire unit is unable to disembark at that point in time. So that is something to bear in mind with disembarking from your transports. Now, if the transport model has either remained stationary or is yet to move, advance, or make a fallback move this phase, the disembarking unit can act normally for this turn, meaning they're able to make a move, they can shoot if they wish to do so if they haven't made an advance move, and they're able to declare a charge and fight. However, it cannot choose to remain stationary. So you have to be able to actually move. You can't just disembark and stay where you want to. You actually need to get out and make an official move when doing so. However, if you are disembarking a unit after the transport has made a normal move, then the disembarking unit counts as having made a normal move already themselves and cannot move any further this phase, and is also not eligible to declare a charge during the charge phase. However, is allowed to otherwise act normally for the rest of the phases of the game. So it means they can still shoot, you just cannot, declare a charge or move again, for example, or try to make an advanced move when you've already made a normal move. Now, a unit is unable to disembark from a transport model if it's either made a fallback move or an advanced move this turn. So that is something to bear in mind. So if you do have a transport that is in close combat, you remain stationary in that close combat, and there's enough space for you guys to jump out the back, you can legally do so, so long as you're able to meet the parameters of disembarking wholly within 3 inches, whilst also maintaining being outside of engagement range of 1 inch of the enemy unit as well. The next section we are looking at for the rules around transports is going to be how to navigate when transports are destroyed when a unit is embarked within them. So navigating that can be a bit tricky, but the rules are pretty clear on it. So when a transport is destroyed, any embarked models within that transport immediately make a disembarkation move from the transport before it is removed from the battlefield. Now, when a unit does make a disembarkation move from a destroyed transport, they aren't affected by the transport's deadly demise ability. Instead, though, you roll 1d6 for every disembarking model from that unit, and for each result of a 1 for that unit, they suffer 1 mortal wound. So they can take damage when you are disembarking out of a transport that's getting ripped in half by Arcana effects, because it makes sense. In addition to any mortal wounds the unit might take, they are also considered to be battle shocked until the controlling player's next command phase, and until the end of the current turn, they actually count as having made a normal move and cannot declare a charge. So it means that if you kill a, say a rhino during your opponent's turn with Overwatch, then the unit that gets out can't move, can't declare a charge. They can shoot, but they're battle shocked, so they can't have any stratagems applied to them as well. So that is a bit of an advantageous thing if you're able to kill a transport in Overwatch and cause some havoc to your opponent's plans with the unit that jumps out. However, when a transport is destroyed and it is actually not possible to deploy the embarked units wholly within 3 inches of the transport model and not within engagement range of any enemy units, then those units must make an emergency disembarkation. Now, an emergency disembarkation is performed in the same way that you would disembark models from a destroyed transport. However, the units disembarking must be wholly within 6 inches of the destroyed transport and outside engagement range of any enemy units. And when you are making an emergency disembarkation move, when rolling for each disembarking model, they do suffer that 1 mortal wound on a result of a 1, 2, or a 3, instead of a result of a 1 when you're rolling that d6 for them jumping out. Now, if for any reason a model is still unable to be set up after making an emergency disembarkation move, then it is destroyed. So it kind of goes in the sequence of, Can you make a regular disembarkation move? If you can't, then you make an emergency disembarkation move. And if you can't make one of those, then you're just flat out destroyed at that point. And that covers basically all the rules that we need to look at for transports. However, as I did mention earlier in the video, we're going to have a look at a couple of practical examples of how these rules work in practice with some examples. Now, we'll mention that the second example we're going to be looking at. Now, that covers it for all the rules around transports. However, as I have mentioned earlier in the video, we're going to be looking at some practical examples of how to actually navigate these rules and how they work in the game as well. So we're going to jump across to the gaming table and we're going to have a look at how these rules work in practice.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so now we're going to jump into a couple of examples to talk about transports, how to deal with embarking, disembarking, firing deck, all the rules that we've talked about in this video so far. In the first setup that we've got a unit of 10 tactical marines right in front with a lieutenant that is about to be onslaughted by a unit of 20 Necron warriors with an overlord with a void scythe in there, very deadly. So we are actually going to have the rhino. It is moved up just behind them, just up here. And now we're going to embark the tactical marine squad with the lieutenant into the rhino. So first off, you measure their movement, which is 6 inches. And you want to make sure that when you're doing your embarking, every single model finishes their move within 6 inches of, not within 6 inches, sorry, within 3 inches of the transport. So within 3 inches of the rhino, which we're making sure that all of them are within those 3 inches so that they can embark within our transport. So now we just check 3 inches. Just make sure that everyone's within that 3-inch range. Yep, which they all are. So they will get picked up off the table and they will be placed inside the transport. Now, I actually personally like to place the unit, sergeant, and any characters on top of the transport. And then I'm just going to pop them on top there so we know what is in the unit. And that's how you do it, embarking move. Now we're going to do firing deck. Now, when it comes to firing deck, as we talked about in this video, the weapons actually count as the transport's weapons. So we've actually got a flamer and a missile launcher in the tactical marine squad. So we are going to fire both the flamer and missile launcher at the Necron warriors. So we're going to measure range for the flamer, which is within 12 inches. Now it is D6 shots, which are going to get 6 shots. These automatically hit, and they are strength 4. Toughness of the Necron warriors is 4, so we are looking for 4s here. So we get 2 wounds, and then 2 4-up saves for Necrons. 1 pass, 1 fails, so 1 Necron warrior is dead. Then we have got the missile launcher that is going to fire its frag missile, which is blast. So there are 20 models in the unit, which means it's going to get +4 to the number of shots. So it's going to get a total of 10 shots against the unit. And so we are looking to be hitting on 3s here, I believe. Could be 4s, but check the data card. So we've got 6 hits. Now, because it is the rhino and not the unit inside that is actually firing it, it doesn't get the lethal hits ability from the lieutenant. So it means that there are just 7 hits there. We're looking for 4s, where we get 3 wounds, 3 fails to wounds, so we get 4 wounds there, and it's AP 0, so we're looking for 4-up saves on the Necrons. There's 3 fail, 1 success, so then another 3 Necrons fall to the tactical marine squad that is embarked within the rhino there. Alrighty, everyone, so next 2 examples we're going to look at is we're looking at disembarking before movement and disembarking after movement. So when you go to disembark before movement, we've just gone into the movement phase. Obviously, we've still got the Necron warriors with the Overlord here, but we've got a Razorback that's got a twin las cannon, and it's got a unit of 5 Deathwatch veterans with some heavy weapons in there, as well as a captain as well. And so when you go to disembark, you have to measure out 3 inches from the transport, and we're just going to place the sergeant just at the edge of that. Same with the captain at that front. And then making sure that the rest of the models within the squad do get deployed there as well, all within that 3 inches of the transport, so that, you know, they're within that range. They just have to move back a little bit. So they're on the other side of the transport, which you can see. Now, both units are still able to fully act normally. So the transport's able to move, and so is the unit that did disembark from the transport as well. So we're just looking at some of the ranges for the weapons as well. Frag cannons are in range, but the heavy bolters are not. In terms of their flamers, actually one is, but one isn't. So we're going to leave it there for the veterans. They're going to remain stationary. However, the Razorback does have quite a large movement, and so we're going to measure from the furthest point that is going to be moving on the Razorback and making sure that we move up to there. So we've moved up about 7 inches, and then we are going to then rotate the remaining, so he's about there. Basically to block a lot of firepower from the Necron warriors coming into the Deathwatch veterans, so they have to kind of maneuver to see and such as well. And then you get to be able to then shoot with the Deathwatch veterans and the Razorback into the Necron warriors there as well. Then we've got disembarking after movement. So when you go to actually move a transport before you disembark, we are going to move that 12 inches on the Razorback here. So he's going to go about 9 inches up. And then we are going to choose to now disembark the unit. Now, the unit that is disembarking will count as having made a normal move, in addition to the transport having made a normal move as well. And so that means they don't get any benefits from, say, the heavy keyword, like the frag cannons would have, to be able to shoot into those Necron warriors. However, they are quite a bit closer, so they're able to get some decent buffs, and the flamers on the Infernus heavy bolters are there to be able to shoot against the Necron warriors there as well. However, they can't move again. They're also ineligible to declare a charge against the Necron warriors if they were to want to do so. So that's just something to bear in mind as to your sequencing of disembarking your troops from a transport, whether you do it before you move it, which means they can act normally, can do their own move, can charge, can shoot, all that fun stuff, or you do it after you move to get them closer and they're only really able to shoot and already count as having made a normal move. Alrighty, so now for this one, we're going to look at how to handle embarking from a destroyed transport, and then the next one we're going to look at is how to handle emergency disembarkation as well. So for this one, the Necron warriors managed to get into combat with the Razorback here that is still carrying the Deathwatch veterans with the captain inside, and the Overlord did manage to knock off the final wounds from the Razorback. So the way that you go about handling this is that you start off by measuring 3 inches away from the transport to get your guys out effectively from that transport, and they have to be outside of engagement range as well. So we are going to be popping them just at around the back here. So there are 6 guys in the unit, and so we're going to roll 6 dice, and now for each one we get, we will suffer 1 mortal wound to the unit. We have rolled a single 1, which means one of the guys will be down to 1 wound there from the 1 mortal wound, and then we are going to remove the transport, but the unit that was attacking it does see if the transport doesn't explode, so it means it's not affected by the deadly demise. So we will now remove the transport from the table, and that is how you handle disembarking after a unit, after a transport has been destroyed. Now the last example we're going to look at is the emergency disembarkation. So now, unfortunately, a Scorpec Destroyer Lord and a brick of 6 Scorpecs have gotten into this Razorback and have managed to destroy it. The the deadly demise has not gone off. Now we need to disembark the units that is inside. However, they are unable to wholly disembark within 3 inches of the transport without being within engagement range of the enemy unit, which means it now needs to make an emergency disembarkation, which extends that range up to 6 inches. So these guys are going to be able to jump out all the way over the back here, and if my tape measure didn't get caught on the Scorpec Lord there, then we've got the other 6 guys that just need to be within that 6 inches of range. They are outside of 1 inch of engagement, so they could be a bit closer there to make sure they're within the 6. Yep. However, for this check for them, we do need to roll 6 dice still. However, on a 1 to 3 instead of a 1, they suffer the mortal wound. So once again, they do only suffer that 1 mortal wound. They're very fortunate. One of the guys is down to 1 wound, and then we remove the transport. And then resume the rest of the combat phase. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is pretty much all of the basics in terms of basic examples of how to handle rules around transports.
And after looking at those examples, that is how you go about using the rules for transports in your games of Warhammer 40,000 for the 10th edition of the game. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy going through the rules for transports, and I hope that you've got a good grasp and understanding of how to utilize them in your games of Warhammer 40,000, as it's quite commonplace to see transports used, and they are quite popular, and some of them are quite sturdy in the current game as well, which is great to see. Now, if you did enjoy this video, feel free to hit it with a like down below if you want to catch more content from us here at the ATW, and feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. And if you have any questions or thoughts, or you need help understanding these rules further, feel free to let us know down in the comments section below, and we can get back to you with some, whether it's your feedback, whether it's helping you understand the rules a bit better around transports, or anything else to do with what was in this video as well. However, if you do want to ask you questions down below, feel free to come and find us over on the Australis TWN Twitch channel, where we do hobbying sessions, live tournament coverage, tournament previews, as well as the South Pacific ITC snapshots. You can ask your questions there, and we'll be able to answer them as well. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.